The scent of gardenias filled my childhood home in Charlotte, North Carolina, as I pinned the final details of my dream wedding. I'm Charlotte Hamilton, 28, a marketing director who poured years into crafting the perfect day. My father, Donald, was distant, always favoring my younger sister, Olivia, but I believed he'd be there for me. Then, in our kitchen, his words shattered everything. "I'm not walking you down the aisle. Olivia's uncomfortable with all the attention you're getting." The room spun, rage and hurt colliding as years of being sidelined for Olivia's feelings resurfaced. I was gutted, but I wasn't letting this ruin my day. A bold plan sparked, one that would make him regret his choice. Stick with me to see how I turned betrayal into triumph. Subscribe and share where you're watching from. Day or night, I want to know. You won't believe what happens next. The conference room at Pinnacle Solutions was a glass cathedral, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Charlotte skyline like a painting I could never afford. At 32, I was the youngest senior project manager in the company's history, a title I'd carved out of sleepless nights, endless spreadsheets, and a stubborn refusal to quit. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and ambition, the kind that clung to the polished oak table where my team sat, laptops glowing, ready to pitch a $10 million contract. This was my moment, the one I'd been building toward for 6 months, the one my boss, Richard, had promised I'd lead. My navy blazer felt like armor, my heels a steady metronome against the hardwood floor. I was ready to claim my place, to prove I belonged at the top. But then Richard cleared his throat, and his words hit me like a sucker punch to the soul. "Lydia's taking point on this, Sarah. She's feeling uneasy about your spotlight, and we need to keep the team balanced." The room tilted. My breath caught, trapped somewhere between shock and rage. The fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of wasps, and the skyline outside blurred into a gray smear. Lydia? Lydia? My colleague, my supposed friend, who'd spent years perfecting her smile for Richard's approval, was stealing my project because she felt uneasy. I'd poured my life into this pitch, 6 months of 2 a.m. revisions, caffeine-fueled panic attacks, and presentations rehearsed in my bathroom mirror until my voice cracked. Every slide was a piece of me, every projection a bet on my future. And now, because Lydia couldn't handle me shining, Richard was handing her my work? "What the fuck, Richard?" I snapped, my voice slicing through the sterile silence. Heads turned, my team, wide-eyed, frozen mid-keystroke. Richard fidgeted with his pen, his tie slightly crooked, avoiding my gaze like a coward. "It's about team dynamics, Sarah," he mumbled. "We need harmony." I glanced at Lydia, sitting across the table, her manicured hands folded neatly, a smug half-smile curling her lips like she'd already won. Her eyes flicked to mine, daring me to challenge her, and I felt something snap inside, a raw, jagged break. This wasn't just about the pitch. It was every moment I'd been overlooked, every idea I'd pitched only to watch someone else take credit, because I didn't play the corporate game of flattery and fake tears. I'd grown up in a small town outside Charlotte, the daughter of a single mom who worked double shifts to keep us afloat. I'd fought for every scholarship, every internship, every rung on this ladder, and now, at the cusp of my biggest win, I was being shoved aside for Lydia's fragile ego. My stomach churned, a mix of betrayal and fury so hot it burned my throat. I forced myself to breathe, my hands gripping the edge of the table, the wood cool against my palms. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the distant clatter of keyboards from the open-plan office beyond the glass. My team avoided my eyes, their discomfort palpable, but I could feel their pity, and that stung worse than Richard's words. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to demand he explain why Lydia's feelings trumped my work. But I knew Richard, his loyalty wasn't to talent. It was to whoever stroked his ego best. Lydia had mastered that game, always lingering after meetings with her practiced laugh, her "oh Richard, you're so right" bullshit. I'd never played that way. I'd believed my work would speak for itself. What a fucking fool I'd been. Sarah, you'll still be a key part of the team, Richard added, his voice dripping with condescension, like I was a child being placated. I stared at him, my pulse hammering in my ears. A key part, I said, my voice low, steady, despite the storm inside. I built this pitch from scratch. Every number, every slide, every goddamn word. And you're giving it to her because she's uncomfortable? He shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to Lydia, who looked away, her smile faltering for a split second. The room felt smaller, the glass walls closing in, reflecting my flushed face at me like a ghost of the woman I thought I was. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor, the sound sharp and final. Thanks for showing me where I stand, I said, my voice trembling but cold. I walked out, my heels clicking like gunshots, the eyes of my team burning into my back. The hallway outside was a blur of cubicles and fluorescent lights, the chatter of colleagues fading into white noise. I made it to the bathroom before the tears came, hot and furious, splashing onto the cold tile. I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection in the smudged mirror. My mascara was holding barely, but the woman looking back at me was a stranger, hurt, humiliated, but not broken. Not yet. I splashed water on my face, the chill grounding me. This wasn't the first time I'd been screwed over. Growing up, I'd watched my mom get passed over for promotions because she didn't fit the culture. Code for not kissing up to the right people. I'd sworn I'd never let that happen to me. But here I was, betrayed by the man who'd promised to champion me, sidelined for someone who'd never earned it. The pain was visceral, like a knife twisting in my gut. But beneath it, something else stirred, a spark of defiance, a refusal to let this define me. I wasn't going to let Richard and Lydia erase me. I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much. As I dried my hands, the paper towel crumpling in my fist, I made a vow. I'd make them regret this, not with petty revenge, but by proving I was bigger than their bullshit. I didn't know how yet, but I'd find a way to take back what was mine. The city lights blinked through my apartment window like a taunting constellation, each glow a reminder of the corporate battlefield I'd just fled. I sat on my worn leather couch, a half-empty wine glass sweating in my hand, the bitter taste lingering on my tongue. It was 9 p.m., hours after Richard's betrayal in that sterile conference room, and my chest still ached from the gut punch of his words. Lydia's taking point. She's uneasy about your spotlight. The memory of Lydia's smug smile and Richard's averted gaze burned like acid. I'd built that $10 million pitch from nothing. Every late-night email, every scrapped draft, every moment of doubt I'd pushed through. And now, because Lydia couldn't handle me outshining her, I was supposed to step back? Fuck that. I wasn't the girl who cried in bathrooms anymore. I was a survivor, forged in a childhood of scraping by, and I wasn't about to let them erase me. But as the wine turned sour in my mouth, I felt the weight of my isolation. I needed an ally, someone who'd seen me when I was invisible. That's when my mind drifted to Ellen. Ellen had been my first manager at Pinnacle Solutions, a silver-haired force of nature who'd walked into boardrooms like she owned them. At 60, she was the kind of woman who could silence a room with a raised eyebrow, her voice gravelly from years of whiskey and late-night strategy sessions. When I was a nervous 24-year-old hire, drowning in imposter syndrome, Ellen didn't just mentor me, she saw me. She'd stay late to review my reports, her red pen slicing through my mistakes with brutal honesty, but always followed by a nod that said, "You've got this." She taught me how to dodge corporate landmines, how to pitch without apologizing, how to stand tall when men like Richard tried to shrink me. When I landed my first client, she didn't send a generic email. She took me to a dive bar on Trade Street, raised a glass of bourbon, and said, "You're going to run this place someday, Sarah. Don't let anyone dim your light." Richard? He'd never cared unless Lydia was batting her lashes at him. Ellen retired 2 years ago, but her words were a lifeline now, pulling me from the wreckage of today's humiliation. I set the wine glass down, The clink against the coffee table sharp in the quiet. My apartment was a mess of ambition, stacked notebooks, a laptop glowing with half-finished work, a whiteboard scrawled with pitch notes. The Charlotte skyline outside flickered, its neon pulse matching the anger still thrumming in my veins. I wasn't just hurt, I was fucking furious, and that fury was waking something up. I'd grown up watching my mom, a single parent, get passed over for promotions because she didn't play nice with the right bosses. She'd come home exhausted, her diner uniform smelling of grease, and tell me, "Work hard, Sarah, but don't trust the system to be fair." I'd sworn I'd be different, that my talent would be enough. But Richard's betrayal proved the system hadn't changed. It just wore a fancier suit. I wasn't going to let it win. Not this time. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I scrolled to Ellen's number. The clock read 9:47 p.m. Too late to call a retiree, maybe, but I didn't care. I needed her clarity, her fire. The phone rang twice before her voice came through, warm and rough like a favorite blanket. "Sarah, you sound like hell. What's wrong?" the words spilled out. Richard's decision, Lydia's jealousy, the stolen pitch that was my blood and soul. "He gave it to her because she's uncomfortable with my success," I said, my voice cracking. 6 months of my life, Ellen, and they're throwing it away. There was a pause, the kind that held years of wisdom, then a low, throaty laugh. "Those bastards," she said. "They don't know who they're messing with." I paced my living room, the hardwood creaking under my bare feet, as I told her my half-formed plan, to bypass Richard and pitch directly to the client's CEO, Margaret Chen, at the industry gala next week. It was insane, a career death wish if it backfired. But I was done playing by their rules. "I want to take back what's mine," I said, my voice steadier now. "But I can't do it alone." Ellen didn't hesitate. "Ballsy, kid. I'm in." She agreed to coach me, to turn my raw anger into a weapon sharp enough to cut through corporate bullshit. "Meet me tomorrow at the Daily Grind, 8 a.m., she said. "Bring your pitch and your spine. We're going to war." I hung up, my heart pounding like a war drum. The city outside my window seemed sharper now, its lights less mocking, more like a challenge. I walked to my whiteboard, the markers squeaking as I wrote gala pitch in bold red letters. This wasn't just about the contract anymore. It was about proving I wasn't invisible, that I wasn't the girl who'd let betrayal define her. Ellen's faith in me was a spark, and I could feel it catching, burning away the doubt. I'd grown up in a world that told me to stay small, to keep quiet, but I'd clawed my way to this office, this title, this life. Richard and Lydia thought they could dim my light, but they'd underestimated me. I was a survivor, and survivors don't just endure, they fight. As I sank back onto the couch, the wine glass forgotten, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my fucking comeback. The Daily Grind smelled of burnt espresso and ambition, its worn wooden table scarred with the ghosts of 1,000 meetings. I sat in a corner booth, my laptop open, its screen casting a blue glow across my face. It was 8:03 a.m., and the Charlotte morning buzzed outside, cars honking, pedestrians weaving through the drizzle. My hands shook as I sipped my latte, the foam bitter against my tongue. Yesterday's call with Ellen had lit a spark, but now, as I waited for her, the weight of my plan settled like a stone in my gut. Going rogue to pitch directly to Margaret Chen, the client's CEO, at the gala was a career gamble. Bold or suicidal, I wasn't sure. Richard's betrayal still stung, his words echoing. Lydia's taking point. "She's uneasy about your spotlight." Lydia's smug smile haunted me, a reminder of every time I'd been pushed aside for not playing the corporate game. But Ellen's voice, rough and steady, had promised me a fight. I was a survivor, forged in a childhood of scraping by, and I wasn't letting them erase me. Ellen walked in at 8:05, her silver hair catching the cafe's dim light like a beacon. She wore a tailored blazer, her presence commanding even in retirement. "You look like you haven't slept, kid," she said, sliding into the booth with a steaming black coffee. Her eyes, sharp as ever, scanned my face. Ready to go to war? I nodded, my throat tight. I opened my pitch deck, the slides I'd poured my soul into for 6 months. Ellen leaned in, her pen tapping the table like a metronome. Show me what you've got. For 2 hours, she tore into my work with surgical precision, cutting weak transitions, sharpening data points, forcing me to justify every word. Don't just sell the project, she said, her voice low and fierce. Sell you, make them feel your fire. Her words hit like a jolt, reigniting the defiance I'd felt last night. This wasn't just about the $10 million contract. It was about proving I was more than Richard's afterthought. Back at Pinnacle Solutions, the office was a minefield. I kept my head down, my heels clicking softly on the marble floor as I navigated the open plan maze. Richard's glass-walled office loomed like a watchtower, and I could feel Lydia's eyes tracking me from her desk. She hadn't confronted me since our break room clash, but her silence was louder than words. My inbox pinged with Richard's emails, assigning me support tasks for Lydia's lead on my pitch. Each message was a knife twist, but I swallowed my rage, responding with curt professionalism. I couldn't tip my hand, not yet. My nights belonged to Ellen now, our secret sessions at the daily grind stretching late under the hum of espresso machines. She drilled me on rebuttals, anticipating every objection Margaret might throw. You're not just pitching numbers, she said one evening, her coffee long cold. You're pitching your worth. Don't let them forget it. The office grapevine was starting to hum. Colleagues who'd seen my late nights, Mark from analytics, Priya from design, caught my eye with subtle nods, their whispers of support like oxygen in a suffocating space. They knew I'd built the pitch, knew Lydia's sudden spotlight was bullshit. But Richard was oblivious, strutting through meetings with his tie loose, tossing praise at Lydia while I faded into the background. It burned, but it also fueled me. Every slight, every smug glance from Lydia sharpened my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for the contract. I was fighting for every moment I'd been dismissed, every idea stolen because I didn't kiss ass. Growing up, I'd watched my mom battle a system that rewarded charm over grit. She'd come home from the diner, her hands cracked from dishwasher, and say, "Don't trust fair, Sarah. Make your own luck." I was doing that now, with Ellen as my guide. One night, as rain streaked the cafe windows, Ellen leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "You're ready, but you're scared. That's okay. Fear means you're alive." She slid a worn notebook across the table, her handwriting scrawled with a single line. "Own the room, or it owns you. Your mom taught you to survive," she said. "I'm teaching you to win." I traced the words, my fingers trembling. Ellen wasn't just a mentor. She was the mother I'd needed when mine was too tired to fight. The gala was 5 days away, and my pitch was razor sharp, but the stakes felt heavier now. If I failed, I'd lose more than the contract. I'd lose the part of me that believed I could rise above this. Back home, my apartment was a war room, notebooks strewn across the couch, my whiteboard screaming gala pitch in red marker. The city skyline glittered outside, its neon pulse daring me to keep going. I rehearsed in front of my mirror, my voice steadying with each run-through. Ellen's advice echoed, "Sell yourself." I thought of my mom, working double shifts to keep us afloat, and Ellen, who'd seen my potential when I was just a scared kid in a cheap blazer. They'd believed in me. Now I had to believe in myself. Richard and Lydia thought they could dim my light, but they'd miscalculated. I was a survivor, and survivors don't just endure, they rewrite the story. As I collapsed onto my couch, the clock ticking past midnight, I felt the spark from last night flare into a flame. This was my comeback, and I was ready to burn the house down. The fluorescent lights of Pinnacle Solutions' office buzzed like a swarm of angry bees, casting stark shadows across the open plan floor. It was Monday morning, 3 days after my last coffee-fueled war session with Ellen at the daily grind, and the gala loomed like a guillotine. My heels clicked against the polished marble as I wove through cubicles. my laptop bag slung over my shoulder like a shield. Ellen's words from Friday night echoed in my head. You're pitching your worth. Don't let them forget it. My rogue pitch for Margaret Chen, the client's CEO, was nearly ready, sharpened to a razor's edge through sleepless nights and Ellen's brutal feedback. But here, in the corporate battlefield, I felt like a spy behind enemy lines. Richard's betrayal, handing my $10 million pitch to Lydia because she was uneasy with my spotlight, still burned. And Lydia's smug presence was a constant jab at my resolve. I was a survivor, forged in a childhood of fighting for scraps, and I wasn't about to let them erase me. But as I settled at my desk, the battle lines were hardening, and the air crackled with tension. Lydia struck at noon, ambushing me in the break room. The space was claustrophobic, the air thick with the sour tang of microwaved leftovers and cheap coffee. She leaned against the counter, her arms crossed, her designer blouse screaming privilege. "You're being a selfish bitch, Sarah," she hissed, her voice low enough to avoid eavesdroppers, but sharp enough to cut. "This is a team effort, and your sulking is screwing it up." My pulse spiked, the memory of her smug smile in the conference room flashing like a red alert. I set my coffee mug down, the ceramic clinking against the counter, and stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. "Selfish?" I said, my voice low but laced with steel. "You stole my work because you couldn't handle me outshining you. Fuck that, Lydia. You don't get to play victim when you're the thief." Her eyes flickered with unease, but she tossed her hair, her lips curling into a sneer. "You're making this personal," she said. "It's business." I leaned in, my voice a whisper. "You made it personal when you took what's mine." She stormed out, her heels snapping like gunfire, and I knew she'd run straight to Richard. By 2 p.m., Richard summoned me to his glass-walled office, the Charlotte skyline glittering behind him like a taunting promise of success. His desk was a mess of untouched reports, his tie loosened as if he'd already given up on the day. "Sarah, don't make waves," he said, leaning back in his chair, his tone dripping with the condescension of a man who thought he owned me. "Lydia's earned this lead, and your attitude isn't helping the team." Earned it? She'd earned his flirty emails and coffee runs, not the pitch I'd bled for. My hands clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. "I'm doing my job, Richard," I said, my voice calm but cold as ice. "I'm supporting the team, like you asked." He squinted, searching for a crack in my armor, but I gave him nothing. Inside, I was raging. Every word a reminder of the system that rewarded charm over grit. I'd seen it crush my mom, who'd slaved in diners only to be passed over because she didn't fit the culture. I wasn't letting it crush me. That evening, I escaped to the daily grind. The cafe's warm lights and espresso hum a refuge from the office's sterile chill. Ellen sat across from me, her silver hair glowing under a hanging lamp, her notebook open to a page scrawled with revisions. We'd been meeting nightly, refining my pitch for the gala, and tonight she was relentless, her pen slashing through a weak revenue slide. "This needs teeth," she said, her gravelly voice steady but fierce. "Hit them with why this project matters, why you matter." I nodded, my laptop screen reflecting my tired eyes, the weight of the fight settling deeper. Ellen wasn't just sharpening my pitch. She was sharpening me, forging my anger into a weapon. "You're scared," she said, reading my silence. "That's okay. Fear means you're alive, but don't let it own you." She slid her notebook across the table, her handwriting bold. "Own the room, or it owns you." "Your mom fought for you to have this chance," she said. "So did I. Now fight for yourself." The office grapevine hummed by midweek. Colleagues like Mark from analytics and Priya from design, who'd seen my late nights, started offering quiet support. A nod in the hallway, a whispered, "You're better than this over coffee." They knew I'd built the pitch, knew Lydia's spotlight was stolen. Their faith was a lifeline, but it raised the stakes. If I failed at the gala, I'd let them down too. Richard kept piling on support tasks, each email a jab at my pride, while Lydia grew bolder, lingering near my desk with snide remarks about team players. I ignored her, my focus on Ellen's drills. Anticipate objections, control the narrative, own my story. One night, as rain streaked the cafe windows, Ellen leaned back, her eyes blazing. "You're not just pitching a contract, Sarah. You're pitching your worth. Make them feel it." By Friday, the gala was 2 days away, and my nerves were electric. My apartment was a war zone, notebooks sprawled across the couch, my whiteboard screaming gala pitch in red. I rehearsed in front of my mirror, my voice stronger with each run. Ellen's mantra, my heartbeat: "Sell you." I thought of my mom, her cracked hands and tired eyes, telling me to make my own luck. I thought of Ellen, who'd seen my fire when I was a scared kid in a cheap blazer. They'd believed in me, and now I had to believe in myself. Richard and Lydia thought they could dim my light, but they'd misjudged me. I was a survivor, and survivors don't just endure, they rewrite the game. As I sank onto my couch, the city skyline pulsing outside, I felt Ellen's spark flare into a fire. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to strike. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom shimmered under a constellation of crystal chandeliers, their light fracturing across polished marble floors. It was Saturday night, and the gala pulsed with the clink of champagne flutes and the low hum of Charlotte's corporate elite murmuring over jazz. My black dress hugged my frame like a second skin, its sleek lines masking the nerves clawing at my stomach. 2 days ago, Ellen had drilled me until my pitch was a blade, sharp, precise, undeniable. Her words echoed as I adjusted my earrings in the lobby mirror. Own the room, or it owns you. Richard's betrayal, handing my $10 million pitch to Lydia because she was uneasy with my spotlight, still burned like a fresh wound. Lydia's smug smile and Richard's patronizing tone had pushed me here, to this rogue gamble. I was a survivor, forged in a childhood of fighting for every scrap, and tonight, I'd take back what was mine. As I stepped into the ballroom, the weight of the moment settled like a storm cloud. But I wasn't backing down. Ellen stood across the room, her silver hair glowing under the chandeliers, her nod a silent war cry. She'd pulled strings to get me 10 minutes with Margaret Chen, the client's CEO, in a private lounge. My heels clicked against the marble, each step a drumbeat in my chest as I wove through tailored suits and glittering gowns. The air smelled of expensive perfume and ambition, the kind that could choke you if you let it. I spotted Richard near the bar, laughing with a client, oblivious to my plan. Lydia was there too, her red dress screaming for attention, her eyes darting to me with a flicker of suspicion. I ignored her, my focus narrowing to the lounge door where Margaret waited. This was it, my shot to rewrite the story, to prove I wasn't invisible. My hands trembled as I smoothed my dress, but Ellen's voice steadied me. "Sell you." The lounge was a quiet oasis, its velvet curtains muffling the ballroom's buzz. Margaret Chen sat in a leather armchair, her sharp eyes assessing me over a glass of red wine. The Charlotte skyline glittered through the window behind her, a constellation of possibilities. "Ms. Parker," she said, her voice smooth but commanding. "You requested this meeting. Let's hear it." I took a breath, my heart pounding like a jackhammer, and launched into my pitch. Every slide was a piece of my soul. 6 months of late nights, scrap drafts, and dreams I'd poured into this $10 million deal. My voice shook at first, but I found my rhythm, each word fueled by the memory of Richard's dismissal, Lydia's theft, my mom's tired eyes telling me to make my own luck. I laid out the strategy, the numbers, the vision, my hands steadying as I spoke. Margaret leaned forward, her gaze locked on mine, and I felt the room shrink to just us, me, my fire, and the truth of my work. I finished, the silence heavy, my pulse roaring in my ears. Margaret sipped her wine, her expression unreadable. "This is bold," she said finally, her voice measured. "Your pitch is compelling, Sarah. Why isn't your boss presenting this?" My throat tightened, but I held her gaze, Ellen's mantra ringing. "Sell you. Because he chose someone else's ego over my work, I said, my voice clear despite the stakes. I built this pitch from the ground up. Every slide, every figure, it's mine. Nobody knows it like I do. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. I'm not here to play games, Ms. Chen. I'm here because this project deserves the best. And I'm it. Her lips twitched, a glint of respect in her eyes. I'll consider it, she said, setting her glass down. You've given me a lot to think about. I stepped back into the ballroom, my legs trembling but my head high. The jazz band's saxophone wailed, and the crowd's chatter felt distant, like I was underwater. Ellen caught my eye from across the room, her nod slow and proud, as if she'd felt the shift in the air. I'd done it. I'd laid my soul bare and owned the room. But the weight of the risk hit me hard. If Margaret dismissed my pitch, I'd be finished at Pinnacle. Richard would fire me, and Lydia would gloat over my ruins. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray, the bubbles sharp against my tongue, grounding me. I thought of my mom, working double shifts in a diner, her cracked hands proof of a life spent fighting. I thought of Ellen, who'd seen my fire when I was a scared kid in a cheap blazer. They'd believed in me, and tonight I'd believed in myself. Richard's laugh cut through the crowd, and I glanced over to see him clinking glasses with Lydia, both oblivious to the bomb I'd just dropped. Lydia's eyes met mine, her smile faltering for a split second, and I knew she sensed something was coming. The gala swirled around me, glittering dresses, clinking glasses, the hum of power, but I stood apart, a survivor in a room of players. I wasn't just fighting for the contract. I was fighting for every moment I'd been dismissed, every idea stolen because I didn't kiss ass. The skyline outside glowed, its neon pulse daring me to keep going. As I drained my champagne, the glass cold against my lips, I felt the fire Ellen had stoked burning brighter. The battle wasn't over, but I'd struck first, and there was no turning back. The boardroom at Pinnacle Solutions was a fortress of glass and steel, its long mahogany table reflecting the Charlotte skyline like a mirror of my ambitions. It was Wednesday morning, 4 days after my rogue pitch at the Ritz-Carlton Gala, and my heart still raced from the memory of standing before Margaret Chen, the client's CEO, laying my soul bare. Ellen's mantra, "Own the room or it owns you," had carried me through that night, but now, as I walked into the boardroom, my heels echoing on the marble floor, the stakes felt heavier than ever. Richard's betrayal, handing my $10 million pitch to Lydia because she was uneasy with my spotlight, had pushed me to this edge. I was a survivor, forged in a childhood of scraping by, and I'd fought to take back what was mine. Today, I'd learn if my gamble had paid off, or if I'd burned my career to the ground. I took my seat, my navy blazer crisp against my skin, the room's fluorescent hum a faint echo of the gala's jazz. Richard sat at the head of the table, his tie knotted too tightly, his eyes darting nervously. Lydia was there, her red lipstick stark against her pale face, her usual smugness replaced by a brittle tension. The executive team filled the remaining chairs, their faces a mix of curiosity and impatience. Margaret Chen entered last, her tailored suit commanding the room, her sharp eyes scanning us like a hawk. My stomach knotted, but I kept my chin high, Ellen's nod from the gala flashing in my mind. Margaret didn't waste time. "Pinnacle," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "We've chosen the lead for our $10 million contract. Sarah Parker's pitch was the most compelling. Her vision drives this deal." The room froze. My breath caught, a rush of heat flooding my chest. I'd done it. My rogue pitch, the one I'd poured 6 months of my life into, had won. Richard's face turned a sickly shade of red, his jaw clenching as if he'd swallowed glass. Lydia stared at her hands, her nails digging into her palms, her smug armor shattered. The execs nodded, some with raised eyebrows, others with faint smiles. I felt the air shift, like the tide turning in my favor. Sarah's initiative and clarity stood out, Margaret continued, her gaze locking on mine for a moment, a glint of respect in her eyes. She'll lead the project. My heart pounded, not just with victory, but with vindication. I'd taken back what was mine, and they all knew it. The news spread like wildfire. By noon, the company-wide meeting was packed, the auditorium buzzing with whispers. I stood near the front, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Margaret took the stage, her voice amplified by the microphone. Pinnacle's success hinges on bold leadership, she said. Sarah Parker's pitch demonstrated unmatched initiative. She's the reason we secured this contract. The applause was thunderous, a wave crashing over me, washing away months of doubt. Colleagues who'd doubted me, ones who'd bought Lydia's act, clapped now, their eyes wide with surprise. Mark from analytics gave me a grin, Priya from design a thumbs up. I scanned the crowd and found Ellen in the back, her silver hair catching the stage lights, her proud wink worth more than any deal. This wasn't just a contract. It was my place at the table, earned through fire. Richard sat in the front row, his posture rigid, his face a mask of forced neutrality. Lydia was beside him, her eyes fixed on the floor, her earlier bravado gone. I'd seen that look before, on my mom when she'd been passed over for promotions because she didn't fit the culture. But I wasn't my mom, and this wasn't her story. I'd rewritten mine. The applause faded, and Margaret invited me to speak. I stepped to the mic, my voice steady despite the weight of every eye on me. This project is personal, I said, my words echoing in the quiet. It's 6 months of my life, my vision, my fight. Thank you to those who believed in me when it wasn't easy. I didn't name Ellen, but I felt her presence, her mantra pulsing in my veins, sell you. The aftermath was electric. Colleagues swarmed me after the meeting, their congratulations a mix of awe and apology. You killed it, Mark said, clapping my shoulder. Priya whispered, about time someone showed them. The office grapevine, once buzzing with my tension with Richard, now hummed with my triumph. I walked back to my desk, the skyline outside gleaming under a gray sky, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about the contract. It was about every moment I'd been dismissed, every idea stolen because I didn't play the game. Growing up, I'd watched my mom fight a system that rewarded charm over grit, her tired eyes urging me to make my own luck. Ellen had seen my fire when I was a scared kid in a cheap blazer, and now I'd proven her right. Richard avoided me. His office door closed, but Lydia's glare followed me down the hall. Her defeat was written in her slumped shoulders, her silence louder than her earlier taunts. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The victory was mine, public and undeniable. As I sat at my desk, my laptop screen glowing with the project files I'd fought for, I thought of my mom's cracked hands, Ellen's fierce nod, the skyline that had mocked me nights ago. I was a survivor, and survivors don't just endure. They redefine the game. The battle wasn't over, but I'd claimed this moment, and it felt like the beginning of something unstoppable. The fluorescent lights of Pinnacle Solutions' office felt softer now, as if the harsh buzz had dulled in the wake of my victory. It was Friday, 2 days after Margaret Chen's announcement in the boardroom, declaring me the lead on the $10 million contract I'd fought to reclaim. My heels clicked against the marble floor, a steady rhythm that echoed the newfound strength in my chest. The memory of the gala, standing before Margaret, my voice steady as I sold myself, still burned bright, as did Ellen's proud wink from the auditorium when my win was made public. Richard's betrayal, handing my pitch to Lydia because she was uneasy with my spotlight, had pushed me to the edge, but I'd pushed back. I was a survivor, forged in a childhood of scraping by, and I'd proven I wasn't invisible. As I walked to my desk, the Charlotte skyline gleaming through the glass walls, I felt the weight of the aftermath settling, a mix of triumph and reckoning. Richard caught me in the hallway that afternoon, his tie askew, his face etched with a fatigue I'd never seen. The office was quiet, the usual hum of keyboards muted as colleagues pretended not to watch. "Sarah, I fucked up," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in weeks. "I should have backed you." The words hung heavy, a confession that felt too late. I saw the regret in his slumped shoulders, the lines creasing his face, but I also saw the years of favoritism, his loyalty to Lydia's flattery over my work. My jaw tightened, memories of my mom's tired eyes flashing, her warnings about a system that rewarded charm over grit. "Yeah, you did," I said, my voice calm but sharp, like a blade honed by Ellen's drills. I walked away, my heels clicking with finality, leaving him in the hallway's sterile glow. I didn't need his apology. I'd already taken what was mine. Lydia's fall was quieter but no less brutal. The office grapevine, once buzzing with my tension, now hummed with her defeat. Colleagues whispered about her backstabbing, their nods to me in the break room carrying newfound respect. She avoided my eyes, her once bold presence reduced to glances and hurried exits. During a team meeting, her usual smug comments were absent, her red lipstick stark against her pale face. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Her silence was louder than her earlier taunts, a testament to the cost of her betrayal. The team saw her for what she was, a thief who'd gambled on Richard's favor and lost. I remembered my mom, passed over for promotions because she didn't fit the culture, and felt a pang of vindication. This wasn't my mom's story. I'd rewritten mine. Leading the project was a baptism by fire. My days were a whirlwind of meetings, emails, and late nights, but I thrived. Every milestone, securing a key vendor, nailing a budget review, felt like a brick in the empire I was building. Colleagues who doubted me now sought my input, their respect hard-earned. Mark from analytics brought me coffee one morning, grinning. "You're killing it, Sarah." Priya from design slipped me a note. "You showed them." Their support was oxygen, but Ellen was my anchor. We met weekly at the daily grind. The cafe's espresso hum, a familiar comfort. She'd sit across from me, her silver hair glowing under the lights, her notebook open to new strategies. "You're not just leading a project," she said one night, her gravelly voice warm. "You're leading yourself." She'd scribble notes, her pen circling my next steps, but she believed that kept me steady, a reminder of the fire she'd seen in me years ago. One evening, as I stood at my office window, the Charlotte skyline glowing under a pink dusk, I felt a quiet peace settle. The city's neon pulse, once mocking, now felt like a partner in my triumph. I thought of my mom, her cracked hands and tired eyes, telling me to make my own luck. I thought of Ellen, who'd seen my potential when I was a scared kid in a cheap blazer. Their faith had carried me here, but I'd carried myself too. Richard's betrayal had cracked me open, exposing old wounds. Every moment I'd been dismissed, every idea stolen because I didn't play the game, but it also revealed my strength. I wasn't just a survivor, I was a force, unstoppable because I'd chosen to fight. Months later, as I reviewed project reports, the skyline glittering outside, I realized the truth. Betrayal doesn't break you, it builds you. Richard's leadership was under scrutiny now, his bias exposed by whispers that refused to die. Lydia faded into the background, her credibility in tatters. I, though, was soaring, my name tied to a contract that redefined Pinnacle's future. Ellen's mantra echoed, "Sell you." I'd sold myself, not just to Margaret, but to myself. The best revenge wasn't tearing others down. It was rising above, building an empire on your own terms, and honoring those who saw your light when others tried to dim it. I was enough, and no one could take that away. As the city glowed below, I smiled, knowing I'd turned betrayal into my beginning. Looking back, this fight wasn't just about a contract. It was about claiming my worth in a world that tried to dim my light. I'm still here, standing taller, and I hope my story hits home for you. Have you ever faced a betrayal that made you question yourself, only to find your strength in the fight? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them with me. Let's talk about what it means to rise above. Thank you for listening, for being part of this journey. It means more than you know. Until next time, keep fighting for your light. I'll see you soon.